Okay, here we go. Looks like the mic caught it. Alright. Yo, what up? It's meh. Okay, I see it's meh's in the chat. What's up? Yeah, we're gonna be doing a, what's it called? Hugging replays analysis with R today. So if you remember from Tuesday, he actually was able to, reschedule and get pushed back for his interviews to the next year. So we do have like about 10 days, 10 to 12 days for him to actually ramp up and do the system design interview. So we're going to be looking at his practice. Now, before we've been mostly focusing on product design, product interview, but now we're going to do like full-on system design with him and get him ready for that for Uber. So hopefully this works out. Before that, let me actually test to make sure my audio is streaming for the what's it called, the for the desktop, because I think I reset my stream settings. So let me check, take a look. Oh, okay, yeah, that works. That works. So let's actually see what's on Y Combinator today. I'm sure it's gonna be pretty interesting. You know, it's the 23rd. Not too many people are out on what's it called, the out work right now. But you know, some people took some time off. But I think it didn't change like what we want to do here. So let's see what happens in the news. I'm sure it's gonna be a slow day. So if anyone has any questions or are working on your own coding interviews, feel free to ask away. We're gonna start with him in about 8 minutes. Yeah, so let me know. So let's see, Google Play, Amazon, and the okay, this one's interesting. I have a lot of thoughts on this. Okay, so let's see. With the quarter, my Twitter feeds a lot of jokes about how Amazon continues to grow its revenue and make no profits. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Great quote. Amazon's a classic fixed cost business model. It uses the internet to get maximum leverage out of its fixed assets, and once it achieves volume of sales, the sum of total profits from all the sales exceeds its fixed cost base and then turns a profit. It's already exceeded this hurdle in the past. I'm fairly certain. Wait, when was this written? 2013. Ah. That it buys time of 20,000 more minutes. Retailers were spinning off healthy profits. Profits and losses. You see revenue by broad category, but most of its costs are lumped together. Very early in my career at Amazon, we could have easily mulled out and see what our revenue would be given up our fixed cost basis. Sure. We could adjust when we wanted to, more or less aggressively. We would given our growth rate. It felt a matter of when, not if we turn a profit. Okay, fair. Obsessed with free cash flow, yeah. Cash in, cash out, gross margin, and net income. Yeah, this is pretty common for like tech companies where it's all cash in, cash out, where you cash hit the books, but then you spend that on capital expenditures to reinvest in your company. So profitability-wise, it looks unprofitable, but cash on cash return, it's extremely good. You have a question. So what's a good application to interview ratio at 40 applications, 11 interviews, 0 offers? Dude, it doesn't matter what your ratio is. What matters is that you get the results that you want. So even if it takes 100 applications, and what matters is like getting the right interviews and succeeding at them. So that's a meaningless question. You're focusing on the wrong thing. Blah, blah, blah. Platform is profitable as well. Balanced ambition, driven giant mission, blah, blah, blah. It's purely software business. Its fixed cost investments for this journey would be lower, but the amount of capital required to grow a business that has shipped half. Okay, so this is basically just kind of saying exactly what I just said. Has lowers its scalable variable costs, and it's dollars in, dollars out reinvested into itself. So I actually don't care. Like, this is not even that interesting. Blah, blah, blah. How does Amazon turn a profit? Not by flipping a switch, but by waiting until transaction volume grows and income exceeds its fixed cost basis again. So this is just a matter of reinvesting into yourself. This is like, yeah, I don't know. This is kind of, I don't think there's much to learn from this. This is just basically, if you understand cash in, cash out, and reinvesting in yourself, that's basically Amazon. So I'm not sure what exactly the point of this article is. Still not amazing. The idea that Jeff showed them is simplistic. They started AWS, competitors sat 5-6 years. Yeah, I mean, AliExpress is more, Alibaba and AliExpress is kind of the exact same thing. So I suppose that if you want the Chinese version of Amazon in terms of technology, I think Alibaba is great. Let's see. Harash asks, how should we ask referral from recruiters or engineers since recruiters get a lot of messages already? Basically, get the engineer to do it. and say, hey, I need a referral. But then, this goes into like, well, what do you offer to the engineer? Why should the engineer take 10 minutes out of his day to help you? I mean, you can always reach out to the recruiters directly through LinkedIn. They get a lot of messages, but they want to make sure that you got the best chance of succeeding. So one of the easiest ways to do this, actually, is to show that you already have passed other interviews as well. Show them past offers, or show them any pending offers that you have. And then that's more likely to get them on the ball. It's like, oh, wait, this guy has an offer already. He can pass interviews. I'm not going to waste my fucking time on some failure who can't fucking pass interviews. That's really it for the recruiter side. For the engineer side, it's much more of a personal relationship that you have with them. Like, what do they get out of it, I give a good gobby. What's a good gobby? I don't know what that is. Toyota reviewing key fob. Shutting down the API was the worst thing we did. Holy fuck. Oh, Jack Dorsey? I'm guessing that this is like some kind of API tooling. This is kind of interesting. I don't know what a good gobby is. The ability of many users. Yeah, Twitter had never been central. There's been a lot of discussion about the subject. Oh, they killed the Twitter API. Yeah. Let's see. One of the charges is to limit access to its API. Yeah. Like, the moment you can't ask developers to use your platform, you can't create anything. You can't lay claim to a lot of the innovations that come in. It's more like exposing API is an investment in your own brand and equity. And the more developers rely on you, the more valuable your brand becomes. So for instance, if like 10% of like the fucking world relies on your API to like for instance, if you're like trying to model stock market or some shit and gauge market sentiment and use Twitter for that, and a lot of financial analysts use Twitter, then you can put a premium on that as well. Once you get enough people dependent on it, then you can start jacking up the price. This is essentially what Apple does. So I think that an investment in your API is it's great. Like, you already have the API to begin with. All that's left is clean it up, make it public. That's it. It's not a lot of investment for a lot of benefit and growth in the equity of your company. So it actually is a really big mistake, I think. So that's like my perspective of it. Allows drivers to play. What the fuck? Tesla bows to pressure. Stops allowing drivers to play video games while driving. Okay. Prevent games from being played. Wow. Like, why was this a thing? Why is this needed? Why, like, people need to be told and made sure that they don't play video games while driving? What the fuck? Okay. This is way too fucking ridiculous. Come on. Seconds before a 6.2 earthquake rattled the camp, phones got a warning. Interesting. AWS Power Failure. This could be interesting. Good programming streamers and content creators. Hey, if someone wants to like post me on here, then I'd really appreciate it, Just post my fucking stream, and just say, hey, this guy, hey, I'm good, or some shit, Yeah, George Hotson's pretty good actually as a streamer. I fucking love his shit. Live Overflow is good. Other than that, I don't know too many of these other people in the tech space. I do recommend George Hots. The dude's a fucking genius. And his streams are always very entertaining. Okay, it's 8 p.m. Let me actually bring my client on and let's chat with him about what he's doing. Hopefully he's he's made some progress. So let's see.
Recording in progress.
Hey man.
Hey, Edbert, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Yeah, catch me up on like your practice. Everything like let's show me like
Yeah.
how's it going?
Yeah. Uber just got back like I think yesterday or today, but we scheduled the on-site to the 10th of Jan because I was trying to get like the first week, but then they said like a lot of people are trying to schedule on-sites on the first week, and so like it's pretty much packed. So there's that, and then for the past like 2-3 days, I wasn't able to do much just because I wasn't feeling quite well, and like work was like kind of busy, and today was crazy. We had like a Sev 1 all day.
Oh,
Yeah, like basically what happened is that there was some issue in the promotion code redemption, and basically people were able to buy like the flagship product for free because it was like a 100% off. Yeah, that was bad. There was like thousands of orders, and so was just on that all day today. But I did do the Dropbox question from Grokking. I did like I would say like a high level analysis between my solution and Grokking, but I didn't have the time and the chance to like write a more detailed write up yet. But I do have like I guess like too long didn't read overview of like the differences and the similarities. I did send you the image, but I could also share my screen to go through it. I guess like which one do you prefer?
I got it. Yeah, so I do see that oh wait, did you send a compressed image?
No. I think if you open it and then you download it, it should be
Oh, you sent it on Discord?
Yeah, I sent it on Discord. I think the one on Google Doc, when I pasted it there, it just compressed it, I think. But if you download it from Discord, it should be. I could also share my screen if that.
I got it. Okay, yeah, okay. I see it now. Wow, that is Okay, got it. Let me open it up, and then I'll share my screen.
Yeah, and I could guide like where to start off with.
Okay, yeah. I see it now. Great. I'm sharing my screen too.
Okay, so I start with the center right below Dropbox.
This one.
The type. Right, the black text, So the blue text is going to be me kind of talking about what Grokking did and what I didn't do, like the differences. So I first did like I can first talk about like the actual different sections. So I first did the functional requirements, non-functional requirements, like as you can see in the center.
Yep.
And then right after that, I did on the right, pretty much I would say similar length up to the capacity estimates. I followed what you told me to do and just like check in with Grokking to see if we have the same requirements and see what I'm missing before going into the design. So up to the capacity estimate on the right side on the blue text is like the comparison. And then after that, I dive into the actual design. And then on the very left, I have like my high level design. I talk about latency, my sharding, and then offline editing. On the right side, I talk a bit about like how I'm going to store the data as well as like the schema. And then after all of that, the second half of the blue text is just me talking about some of the things that Grokking covered but I didn't, and some of the things I did different, and some of the similarities.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, that's fine. Let me go through this. This is my first time looking at it.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the level of detail you put in, so I'm going to commend you for that. That's good. So let's look at the functional and non-functional requirements, because usually this is like, these are going to be setting, the way I see these for functional and non-functional requirements and all this shit, is these are going to be your compasses. If at any point during the interview you say, shit, I don't know what to focus on, go back to these. And it's this is like easily 40-50% of determining how well you will do on this interview. Just because like, again, you go back to these, they'll lead you to what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it was helpful because I was like, as I was writing like the other stuff, I was basically like scrolling back and forth just to make sure like I'm referring back to the functional requirements, because I think like from the last time we did on like the last practice we did on Monday, I realized like I was like kind of like jumping in between requirements. So yeah, it made it easier just to like constantly look back to make sure I'm on the right track.
Okay. Yeah, so then let's take a look at this. Users can upload, store any types of files to their workplace. Users can create folders and directories. Users can download, delete the uploaded files. Users can edit the metadata. Okay, sure. That's fine. I think that you're correct specifying this. Upload, delete. I think there's also going to be like some kind of syncing as well, no?
Yeah, and those are the things like I missed. So on the right, you can see on the blue text under requirements, I talk about like things that Grokking covered. For example, user can share photos with others. Each file will be up to 1 gigabyte. ACID requirement, offline editing. Those are the main things I didn't think about. I was thinking, yeah, I was like more focused on like the very core functionality, but I was thinking those as like nice to have or extended requirements, but then it seems like Grok wanted to consider those as like the basic requirements.
I will say ACID is more about the database itself and those types of transactions. They're not necessarily bad to consider, but it's something that you should at least like have in your vocabulary. You should understand what ACID transactions are, and why they are applicable here.
Yeah, I just assumed that it was kind of implied since I mentioned that we are like we want to design something that's highly reliable and consistent. But it's just I didn't explicitly mention ACID, so I just wanted to note it down as I was reading through grokking.
I think it's better to explicitly consider ACID and say yes or no. The reason why is because it's like more detailed, never hurt anyone.
Okay.
So, okay, that's fine. Similar read to write, that's fine. Internal files are stored as chunks. Highly reliable, good. Okay, consistent. You should be able to see their files in a consistent state across. Yeah, highly consistent, but then, you can always use CAP theorem as a guiding compass. So, eventually consistent, because I would say eventually consistent here because, that's what syncing is. Eventually, it will be consistent and synced up. So it doesn't matter if that's like a minute from now on, it's like eventually you do need to reconcile that. So that's something I would have mentioned as well.
Yeah, I guess because when I was writing my requirements on the website, I wasn't really considering offline editing. That's why I was saying like highly consistent in the sense that once you upload it, it has to be very consistent across different devices, not in the sense of like syncing after offline editing.
Okay, that's fine. Either way, I would still have just like been very explicit about it. I think the two things that people really gravitate towards is like hitting the ACID keyword and hitting the cap theorem. Those are almost always like, I would say it's relevant in like over half the problems that you do. Cap theorem like 80%. But it's just a matter of, even though you have that detail, that story of highly reliable, highly consistent, what's more useful is that if you can hit that in one single vocabulary word, and you can derive everything from it. It's a lot easier to work with. It's a lot easier to communicate. It's just small things right now. I like the detail. Right now, we're just like increasing your vocabulary in order to capture all of this. So I have right now. It's just me being a little bit nitpicky, but otherwise, I think what you're doing is fine.
That's fine.
Some considerations here. If edit happens, I think this is like what happens if shit hits the fan. What are the things that can go wrong? I think those are the considerations you need to add here. I think the lesson here is, hey, consider what goes wrong.
So actually on the right side, so those are the things that Grok covered that I didn't, but actually the ones highlighted with the asterisk, those are actually things that I actually already planned to talk about, but I just didn't include it in the considerations. For example, like internal files stored as chunks, edit happens only transfer affected chunks, and local copy of those are actually things that I already planned, but I just didn't list them out in the considerations. I thought those would be things I'll be talking about later down the road, but then they seem to mention it like pretty early on. And then basically after that, the second half of the blue text, I wouldn't get to that. That would be the last part after we're done with the entire part. But and then from that point on, I started designing it, and then the left side would be the high level design.
Okay, I don't care about the capacity estimations. Everyone comes up with a bunch of different shit. But I think you quickly identify that your bandwidth and data store is going to be basically your fucking choke points. So I'm fine with that so far. All right, so then let's see what you did here. High level design. Uploading files, so we can begin design of having a web server that takes in web requests with blob storage. And fine, what metadata? Okay, so you're relying a lot on metadata, and then so then the question then becomes, how do you store the files, and what does the metadata contain? So state door as chunks, meaning a file can be split into chunks of 4 megabytes at most. This will be beneficial, sure. New files are uploaded, divided into chunks. We can reuse a chunk if it's a duplicate. So it's a matter of diffing and then just kind of like seeing which chunk corresponds to which content that got diffed. It's a binary diff,
and I was kind of going by this, kind of like similar to how we do coding. So I listed out like after doing like the initial like requirements, estimates, and then I started with like the most core functional requirement that we're trying to tackle, which was uploading and storing files. That's why I started with like the basic client, web server, and then storage. And then from that point, I kind of built on top of like, okay, now we have this like how do we actually store the file, and what kind of metadata we store, and that was kind of like the route I was taking as I was going through this problem.
Yeah, I'm reading this. I don't notice anything about versioning actually. I feel like that'd be kind of important.
But I don't think versioning is a requirement, just because like that's something I guess it would be something extended. This is also mentioned in the grokking solution. They mentioned this is something nice to have, but they didn't bother going into that.
Okay, that's fine because I would have at least acknowledged it a little bit, but if it's
Okay.
outside the scope of the question, that's fine. But that's like the first thing that happened in my mind, and the reason why is because well, when I'm looking at this and you have this upload thing, the next thing is like what's the most obvious thing that can go wrong, and it's kind of the same thing here, right? When you do these
Yeah.
considerations, what's the most obvious thing that can go wrong? So this one is just a most obvious thing that can go wrong. Now you can table the discussion as well, but I would have like appreciated like a little bit more acknowledgement of it. But it seems
Okay.
like you did acknowledge it, so I'm okay.
Okay.
Metadata user creates it, uploads a new file, edits a folder. Metadata info needs to store in a metadata database. So the question is, what's in the metadata, right? Like that's the next logical
Yeah.
question here. Durability, reliability, total failures data will replicate our data across regions. I will, yeah, you eventually do get that, but then you also need to save it across like within each region as well. There's also going to be multiple copies of it. So not only are you
Yeah.
replicating across regions, you're also replicating within a region as well. Because it's the over availability. The metadata storage can have one primary write database and two synchronous replicas that can take over in case of failure. So then your arrangement looks like it's going to be master slave.
Yeah.
Interesting. Why master slave over anything else like leaderless?
I guess I just wanted to centralize the write here.
Okay.
And just like I feel like master slave or like leader like yeah master slave is like typically like the I guess like to go option that I go with when it comes to like the data replication. And because like with leaderless that becomes like that kind of raises the questions of like because like reading through like DDIA I feel like after reading through DDIA I kind of like didn't have much confidence in like leaderless. It seems like there's a lot of things to be discussed.
Yep.
And there a lot of things like the interview can kind of like poke at when if I do mention leaderless. And that's why I try to avoid it unless like it's something I unless until I like I've read more and like revise it and I have more information to kind of back myself up.
Okay.
That's why I'm like kind of like reserved to go with leaderless.
Okay, so basically this is a consequence of you not understanding or like fully understanding like what it's used for and in what situations. That's actually a pretty bad answer. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
So that means that you need to like reread that. I mean, it does take
Yeah.
a couple reads. Don't get me wrong. Even I need to reread shit like this from time to time. But the bottom line is that if you have a high volume of reads, like say like this, you make a public file available to, and you have 100 people in your team, then leaderless might actually be up your alley. But then if you're only going to write like if it's a more even read to write ratio, like if there's a small team, then you might be better off using master and slave. Because the reason why is because for leaderless you need to have a consensus, right? And so it takes longer to propagate. But then the benefit of that is that you have multiple servers where people can read from. So that's where it benefits people that read a lot.
So, but couldn't you still read from like master slave?
Yes, you could actually as well. And that's a deep dive discussion that you should be. I don't think you need to be ready to have, but at the L5 plus level, you do need to be ready. So I'm not going to harp on it too much right now, but
Okay.
I want you to not get in the habit of saying, "Oh yeah, because I don't understand this, I'm just going to go with this and move on." I don't want you to get in the habit of that. I want you to get in the habit of saying, "I don't understand this, therefore I need to reread it."
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
I actually and I actually do mention in the last bullet point that we want to make sure like the followers are like fully caught up before serving any reads. But yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We can potentially use an append only log to keep track of the changes. And then I'd get into a discussion of why append only, why not something else.
Yeah.
But it seems like you're a little bit more prepared to have that discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's as long as again, like basically, once you make these decisions, you should at least have one layer of justification for it, like why is it good and why is it not good, and versus some of the other options. That's basically it. I'm not gonna deep dive into some weird debate because that's like for staff level shit. But you should at least be prepared to defend your answer.
Okay.
A little bit. Okay, latency and speed. Consistency and priority. We want to reduce the latency as much as possible. Okay, strange choice. Because the reason why is, like, to me, when I think of Dropbox, I'm like, I don't care if I receive the data in 5 minutes. I would rather get it to the file is 100% stable and then be delayed 5 minutes for the update. Or 1 minute for the update, I think this is a strange choice, but as long as you're ready to defend, it, I have no problem.
Okay.
Separate our reads and writes to 2 different pipelines. Note that files are mutable, so we don't have to worry about users reading. Okay, let me look at when you say because the files are immutable. This definitely like what's it called? Like interferes with the idea of, hey, we're gonna split into 4 megabytes of chunks and then upload those chunks. So does that mean that you're gonna have 2 copies of the files running around?
No. So when you upload a file, we split that file into chunks, and then I kind of talk about this as well, but we will re-upload it. Wait, when a user basically like edit, you cannot actually like edit a file, right? Like for example, if you upload a video, you can't edit the video on Dropbox. What you can do is like, however, like you re-upload a edited version of the video, or if you deleted the original video and re-upload the edited version, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we will be able to kind of identify based on the chunks, because when you re-upload a similar video or similar content, because we split them into chunks, we will not store the duplicate chunks. For example, like you uploaded an initial video, and you later on upload a similar one, but with an extra 10 seconds of extra content.
Right.
We are not going to restore store again like the first 60 seconds. We're only going to store like the new 10 seconds of chunks.
So it's not overriding it yet. You're just uploading the chunks to a whole new place.
Sorry, I didn't get your.
You are not overriding the original file. You're just storing the chunks that are different.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I would say your file management is going to be absolutely crazy, but it can work. Depends on how you set this up.
Okay.
The reason why is because essentially what you're doing is you're storing. How do I describe it? I think that what you're doing is on the right path, but I disagree with it. I would say, why not just diff the file and then upload the binary diff?
Diff the file and upload the binary. So that's pretty similar in terms of like the concept, right? It's just that the way you do it is different.
Mm-hmm. The reason why I say this and then you upload the diff instead, it's like a little bit more explicit, because the way you described it is a little bit like let's say I have one file, right?
Okay.
I split it into 10 chunks. And then let's say I change 2 of the chunks, right?
Yeah.
Effectively, that is the diff.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I didn't know you could do a binary diff or like the thing you just mentioned. I actually have no concept of that.
Yeah. So it's the same way you would like do a text diff. It's just binary instead of characters.
Okay. I'm just gonna note that down to something to read on, because I actually didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. It's fine, and then you do gotta handle some versioning. So basically, from here on, the more I talk about this and the more I'm like talking about this with you, I think the conversation will lean more towards like versioning and managing these files. Actually, let me see the rest of this. Showing this files. I think that you're. I'm gonna guess this. I haven't looked at the thing. I think that you are gonna kind of fall apart when we talk about that. Like what happens when a user uploads a new file. I think that you're gonna fall apart in that. Blah blah blah. Or editing, offline editing. Therefore, offline clients continue to make changes. Right. We'll need to keep track of changes since the last connection. Changes since last version. I would say not last connection. I think that all this boils down to is versioning, but I think you're just focused on like connections too much. So let me actually see what the what's it called, the Dropbox did. So let me actually synchronization service. Yes. So that's regarding changes and commits. These is like this is the versioning I'm talking about.
Okay.
Caching policy, deep dive into client component, talk about chunker, indexer, watcher, and internal database. Yeah. So basically, it's what I mentioned before about this idea of versioning. Well, how are you going to handle it? What is the mechanics of it? I think you feel like you kind of just gloss over it and say, eventually we will, have these eventually consistent. But you don't dive into how that mechanic works. And you can notice here that I was like really harping on it because to me, it's the most obvious problem based on what you just said. It's like, how does this actually work? And so when you mention something, when you decide to say, hey, we're going to have the synchronization service, the question is, how does the synchronization actually work? And all it boils down to, is it core to the problem that you have here? And I would argue that you kind of focused on like this non-functional requirements too much, like highly relatable, highly consistent, low latency, that you kind of forgot the functional requirements and you didn't focus too much on that. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mentioned in the review that I didn't go deep enough into like the synchronization part.
Mm-hmm. Right, and again, this is a consequence of you focusing on, okay, how do I make things eventually consistent? How do I meet the bandwidth requirements? How do I X, Y, Z? But again, like I would say, like think about like what is absolutely core to your system. And that's almost not like 7 times out of 10, it's the functional requirements. Making sure that the system works. Now, the non functional is like, okay, now that I have the basic product, how do I make it fast? That's basically what this boils down to. Focus on the functional, make sure that you have the core parts of it, and then make sure that core part is meets the non functional requirements, and then move on to the next item. And I think you just kind of like bit off more than you could chew, and you focused, and you did it the other way around. That's the takeaway from here. Chose the client to have store the metadata. Because you notice here, like metadata come online, then new changes will based on the offline edits will have saved since the last connection. These edits are tracked in an internal change log to the client, which will clear to save space, which they've synchronized. Yeah, so basically, it's just about looking at the metadata, and the metadata will have the version. And then when you're ready to sync, then you'll have version X versus version Y, and then you'll have that updated. And then there's also like the issue of reconciliation. So basically what I see here isn't a failure to understand what you're doing. It's a failure to actually make it relevant to the problem that you're doing. But other than that, you have the basic idea of what these things are supposed to do down. Load balancing between these metadata databases. Let me actually bring up exactly what grokking does.
Yeah.
I think your approach is okay, but it's just that if you aimed at the right area, I think you would have done much better.
I like you mentioned. I feel like most of the things actually when I look at grokking, they are like design is like fairly similar. The key parts that I miss are definitely like the synchronization that I could have went into a lot more detail. But yeah, if you
I'm bringing it up. So let me move this here, and then let me see. Let's compare it side by side here. So then here you have your, like the top one is going to be grokking, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you have your desktop ABC, that's fine. Load balancer, okay, this assumes that all servers are homogeneous. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I have no problem with this. You put the load balancers in front of the server, but then, okay. Metadata servers, notification. Yeah, notification servers. It's like, well, let's ignore this for now. Metadata servers. Okay, yeah, put the load balancer here, fine. Metadata cache is why the cache in front of the load balancer because you have multiple replicas of this. I see why metadata servers. Okay.
So we also have to I also have the same like caches like they do, and just like 2 different databases, one for object and one for metadata.
The thing is that I would argue against the cache here. I would argue against the cache. Do you know why?
Why?
How often are these objects going to be actually retrieved?
It's mainly because like you're right. Amount of retrievals may not be like necessarily high, but the reason I put it there is because we support sharing, and so like we could have like basically like users or different accounts accessing the same files from different regions. Hence, I put the CDN there to allow like users from like other regions to access the file quicker.
Yes, but then, keep in mind, every single component has a cost to it, right? It's about cost benefit. So if you're saying that other users can have access to it, that means that you think there's a significant number of users using some objects that they repeatedly need to hit this object store, and that you benefit more from a cache. Now, how likely is that for Dropbox?
I guess like for most like individual users, it won't be as likely.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just put it there just for like the sharing purposes, in consideration of like for example like at Facebook, like we use like say Google Drive, and then like everyone in the team or like across teams may want to refer to the same document or like the same picture.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, like they do have a storage cache. I'm not gonna deny that, but it's like you have to make a strong argument for it. That's my point here.
Okay.
Boiling it down to we do this at Facebook too. It's kind of like weird.
No, I just like give an example of like groups of people sharing and accessing the same file.
Okay. All right. Okay, but overall, your design is pretty similar. I think your reasoning is just a little bit wonky, and like in fact, look at this messaging queue for synchronization service. I think you need to be a lot. This is like when you deep dive into pipelines. So for me, your quote unquote endpoint is going to be when you've handled all the core the core client stuff, and that you've addressed like the core functionality, and then you have also you've handled all the obvious cases. That's your finish point. I'm gonna say going forward. I think you don't know when to stop. Wait, hold up. I'm gonna let my cats and they're like not gonna stop standing.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like crying. I feel bad for them.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. All right.
You said, yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
You mentioned handle all the obvious cases. What was the former? It was like solving like the core problem.
Mm-hmm. So the core problem, remember how I kind of just like worked through it and said,
Yeah.
hey, we have this idea of uploading diffs, right? And
Yeah.
changing these files. And I think that's pretty core. Like synchronizing these files in Dropbox is pretty fundamental to the product. So which means that you can consider your design done when you have handled that very obvious use case. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's that's what I'm talking about. Like the obvious shit that is core to your product, you need to be able to handle, and all the short, like, the most obvious issues with it, and then you can call it done. Right now, like, you have the basic idea down, but I still think you're focused on like all the numbers and making highly non-functional requirements. I'm just repeating myself, but overall for your first pass, it's not bad. But you kind of see here like they kind of did the high level design here, and then they kind of dove into the details. Like they did like a top high level design and then dove into details like that, like a tree structure. I want you to do exactly the same way and use the immediate inefficiencies or the immediate issues as your compass. So, and I think you'll do much better. Other than that, I like your level of detail. I want you to keep this up.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I just like really like missed on like understanding that. Oh, like just recognizing that synchronization is a core issue to this problem.
Yep. And then I think it'll make your life a lot easier when dealing with it. It's the exact same thing that we've been doing for like the coding for like data structures and algorithms for your product design. It's exactly the same questions. Like, what is the shit that is blocking me? What is the most obvious problem here, and how do I fix it? It's just following that over and over and over again and diving into the details until we say, hey, we've reasonably solved this. That's it.
Okay.
So, other than that, I'm not, like I said, I'm not disappointed. I think you're doing a good job. Is this the only thing that you did?
Yeah. Like I mentioned, I wasn't feeling well. Got a little sick and work was busy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I just like was like also kind of like reading up more on like DDIA. Like I'm actually trying to review it more now that like since Uber's interview is next year, I want to kind of like take up more time to reread some of the parts of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me think about how to handle the next few days because we have Christmas Eve coming up, Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling right now?
I would say like around like 5 as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted you to take this week to really just to show you can do this. And because remember like last week you were like having so many doubts, like, oh, what if I fail? We've only studied product. Like, notice here that you're pretty detailed, you're pretty thorough, and I think you can, like, you just only are missing a few pieces, but I think you yourself realize that you can do this.
Yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable after doing this problem. Like, I feel like all the problems kind of have I guess like on the very basic level, all the problems have like a very similar approach. It's just that each problem has like a special like characteristic. For example, like if it's a file storage problem, then you have to go into versioning. If it's a messenger or like messaging app, then you have to go into like the real-time requirement as well as like how you want to store the messages. And then like if you talk about anything like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, then it's all about like newsfeed. So I feel like I see a lot of like similarities. This is like being able to. I feel like I'm okay. I'm like very comfortable with like the common problems that all these problems share. I just need to get better at like the domain or like the special characteristics each of these problems have.
It's about focusing. I don't want you to think of it in terms of like, oh, I've seen this problem before. And I mean, it kind of works, but what I want you to focus on is it core? Oh God, is it core to the actual product that I am working on? Is it core to the product that? Is it core? Is it a core expectation? Is it reasonable? So like for instance, if I am designing like a comment system for Facebook, It's one thing to say, hey, well, we'll just load all the comments on a post and call it a day. It's another thing to say, hey, well, the user is going to expect live comments. That is an add-on on top of it. Now, the question is whether or not it's absolutely vital to the product. I would say at this point, like before in the past, probably not. People just like are going to refresh the post and whatever. But for users to actually receive live comments now and all that shit is probably now like very, very reasonable user expectations. And it's making sure that you actually address those. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about knowing and understanding what your product stands for and what it's used for. It's kind of going back to the whole product design that we were doing before. Like what do users reasonably expect when you change the language and locale or internationalize Facebook? It's having that sense, and once you have that sense, then everything starts falling into place. You have the mechanics. I would say 60% of the mechanics here for system design, but I think if you give it a little bit of time, like the next 20 days, you're gonna get there. So what I want to do is this. I want to give you more time with this. 24th and 25th, I assume you're gonna fuck off and just enjoy food and family and all that. I honestly have no problem with this, especially since we've punted out Uber and Facebook essentially over to next year. So I want to actually give you Monday to not have me coach you, but for you to do these problems yourself. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel fine. I'll just, if anything, I'll just as I do these problems, I can just send you pictures, and if you have time, you can take a look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. I think in lieu of the coaching sessions, I think we can do the stuff like this. I can give you hey, you're missing this compass because again, mechanically, you're fine.
Yeah, I think that works a lot better as well. And then if needed, we can do one more coaching session next year if you need it. But I think this works fine for the next 1 to 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and plus I know you've been very stressed at work, especially today. I want to extend the amount of time that we're doing because these coaching sessions can be a little bit stressful. I get it. That's why I want to counterbalance it by okay, if you have stress at work, we're gonna make it a little bit easier here, and then vice versa. And I think it works pretty well for you, and given what you want. And oh no, cats are running off. It's I want to give the next 10 days because it's going to be pretty easy on you. I hope.
Yeah.
And then I would say probably before the new year, and then after the new year, we'll do coaching sessions, and then we'll see where that goes. But overall, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel good about that. I do have some questions regarding Uber's interview. I met with the recruiter, and they mentioned it's gonna be 2 coding, 1 design, and 1 behavioral.
Mm-hmm.
But then the coding, they mentioned 1 is gonna be the typical algorithms and data structures, and then they mentioned the other one is gonna be domain specific, and mine's gonna be backend, but do you know what does that mean, domain specific? So if it's iOS or front end, I guess that makes sense because front end they would just ask JavaScript, React questions, and then iOS they would just ask mobile specific questions. But I guess when it's backend, it seems very generic and broad.
So you basically asked me, are they gonna ask you some language specific shit?
They mentioned they're not gonna ask language specific stuff, but I'm just not sure if it's gonna be is it I basically I guess I'm asking is there any additional things I need to do to prep for that, because I'm not sure what they meant by domain specific.
I actually don't know what domain specific means either.
Okay, never mind then.
It's I'm guessing if you're a full stack developer, they might ask you about how DNS resolutions are. If they're asking about iOS, they're gonna ask you about the SDK, right? And Android, they're gonna ask you about the fragments and shit. It's basically stuff that is related specifically to your technology stack and what you're very comfortable with. So this product design and the system design is just one element of that, right? Another part is if I ask you, if you're a Java developer, I kind of expect you to tell me how garbage collection works.
But the domain specific, that one's actually going to be a coding interview. That's why I'm
interesting.
Unsure.
I honestly don't know. I'm sorry. But if you can give me more information, I can see what's it's so.
No, I think it's fine. I'll just look around the internet. If anything, I'll just practice just writing Python. I think it should be fine. I'm not too worried. I was just wondering.
Okay, that's fine. But I think overall your preparation's been pretty good. Don't lose your what's called the data structure and algorithm stuff. I think just spend a few days half the day on that, or no, I'd say 25% of the day on that, and 75% of the day on your system design. You do that for a while, I think you'll be in pretty good shape. I think we've already proven that your data structure and algorithm stuff is pretty top notch, but I don't want you to lose it. So.
Yeah, sure.
All right. With that, I can let you go early, or if you have any other questions, we can keep chatting. We have the rest of the
Oh,
hour.
no, I guess I'm good. I don't have like other questions.
All right. Sounds good. Keep me posted on all the updates for like Uber, Google, and all that. Oh yeah, did you hear back
Yeah.
from Google for hiring or anything?
No, like the recruiter mentioned, like I'm likely not gonna hear back until like New Year's because he mentioned like hiring committees probably not gonna meet due to the holidays.
That's fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
and if Amazon gives you
yeah,
shit, just tell them, hey, up level me because Google's gonna up level me or fuck off, you know.
I already met with the team. Actually, like the Amazon team is actually chiller than I thought. It's gonna be a new service, so like the on call is still not set, and like they're still working on like the preview and all that. So, but yeah, the recruiter is not like thankfully like, the recruiter is actually pretty patient. She hasn't been
Okay.
like pushing me or giving me any deadlines.
Good. Holy shit! I dealt with a LinkedIn recruiter who's a total dick. So I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
you're prepared for that.
Yeah, because my even my tech lead was like when I before I even interviewed with Amazon, he was like, "Oh, you're interviewing at Amazon? I heard they usually do like exploding offers." But
Hmm.
yeah, my recruiter like from Amazon is like surprisingly like pretty chill. It's been like what 3 to 4 weeks, and like she hasn't been pressing for like an answer yet.
Good. Good. Okay, so you're right now pretty you're pretty level. I don't have really much else to say. And I really hope that okay. I really hope
Okay.
that think going forward that we can nail the interviews for Facebook and Uber in the new year. So
Yeah.
this next 10, 12 days is going to be on you. So
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Seems like you have to tend to your cats.
the cats are meowing. Wait, can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear it the
Holy
whole time.
shit. Okay. All right. Then I'll chat with you later.
All right. All right. Have a good one then. Enjoy
All
the
right, you too.
holidays.
Happy holidays. Bye bye.
Bye.
All right. If there's any other questions about what happened, let me know. I think what he did was actually pretty good, considering that we kind of just went from nothing to this state. I'm pretty happy with how things went. So, if anyone has any questions, ask now or shut up forever. Just kidding. Just ask now. All right. Going once. Going twice. Um, 3 times. All right, I guess that's it for the stream. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me on Discord. All the social links are in the description below, or in the comment section. For a beginner, would you say that grokking has everything? Yeah, pretty much. Grokking and EPI, even if you're not a beginner, just between those two, you're great. You're gonna be fine. Follow the guide that's in the description, and you'll be perfectly fine. So, with that, hopefully you guys good luck on your interviews in the new year. And I'll see you next time on stream. Thank you all for joining me.